Do you know what the thing is about cash? It's gone. Like that. Without a trace. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on Cannabis Industry Lawyer, and you're going to want to hang around until the end because that's when I will tell you how to really launder the money. Not sure if you heard, but according to the Bank of Springfield, which was the primary bank for all the medical marijuana businesses in the state of Illinois, we're talking about $8.5 million of transactions in cash every month. They were just told they have to get out of the bank. Why? Maybe the Jeff Sessions memo actually did something. Maybe it scared the Bank of Springfield, and therefore that's no longer to be on the table. And there's going to be a lot of ramifications. That's why we're going to be talking right now. And it's not just that the medical marijuana businesses are losing their bank accounts from the Bank of Springfield. It's also that there's no other bank out there that's going to be providing them services. Because a lot of these businesses need to have an account so they can pay their vendors. Nobody wants to get paid in cash. Can you imagine the receipt for the cash payment? Great, it would be there to have. And maybe there's a software solution out there for these medical marijuana businesses that tracks all their cash so you can have these types of receipts for cash paid out. However, a lot of vendors don't want to take a cash payment, especially when it exceeds $10,000. And many of these cash payments are going to, unless you try to structure these cash payments, which is another federal crime called layering, gets back into the money laundering aspect. So how do you get this to just be a data entry in a ledger at your bank when you can't have a bank? Well, there might be some money laundering for you in the future, and then there's money laundering on the money laundering. But anyway, the money is now going to not be able to deposit anywhere. So you get the money in, and then what happens? It just starts to pile up. Yeah, that is not something you want to deal with as any vendor, especially a vendor that's doing millions of dollars of transactions each month, as the Illinois medical marijuana businesses are. Because what's that's going to do, number two? It's going to increase the likelihood of violence. Medical marijuana businesses were able to take deposits every month down to the Bank of Springfield, actually every day down to the Bank of Springfield, and get rid of the cash, turn the cash into an account. It's way easier to deal with when it is a ledger. What's a ledger? Log into your credit card, log into your bank account, and you'll see a ledger. If you really want a digital ledger, look up the Bitcoin paper by Mitsuaki Suzuki Sachuan. That's really not his name. What are you going to do? You're an Illinois medical marijuana business, and you have until May 21st to figure out how to be not just cash only in the sense that you're taking in cash. That's how it is right now. You're cash only in that you're taking in cash. Your ledger's gone. You can't deposit it into a bank anymore. Your ledger is now a safe deposit box and like a legitimate ledger. I mean, I guess you could still use Excel spreadsheets or QuickBooks, but you need a safe because this money's just going to start piling up unless, because a lot of vendors, the federal government, your other service providers, people that are doing your payroll, they really don't like doing large cash transactions. There's not just the Anti-Money Laundering Act that has the SAR for the $10,000. There's also a lot that the Patriot Act did to really squelch down on these large cash transactions, which does make sense. Because remember, it's gone. It's just gone. And that's how cash is. One of the nice things about cash, to be honest. But you're probably going to see some money laundering there's nothing but money laundering currently going on by the medical marijuana and all other lawful use of marijuanas that have their accounts at there's only 500 banks that have accounts, and we can tell that from FinCEN data. And that's how much I owe you for my green crack. Let's talk about the simplest, most plain vanilla money laundering you can do. You can have an ATM at your medical marijuana dispensary. Only really works for the retail. Doesn't really work for the cultivation centers that then send their product to the dispensaries. They would still need to get racks of cash paid from one to the other. And if that's cash payment from one cash-only vendor to another cash-only vendor, fine. However, the actual individuals that are going to be buying the marijuana have the ability to be able to disambiguate or wash the cash by using an ATM machine on the actual site of the medical marijuana facility. So that medical marijuana facility would have an ATM, and that ATM, maybe you would start an ATM business to get a bank account, and that ATM business would be called 123 ATM LLC. Consumers take their card and put the card into the ATM machine and get the cash, and then you have an account. You have a digital record of that transaction, which gets pushed to the bank account holder. And great, now you can write a check for $15,000 to a particular vendor, and you're not going to get the same type of they call suspicious activity reports. We've done a lot of stuff on suspicious activity reports, so check those out. Okay, maybe you're really not up for trying to launder money through using an ATM, which gets us into our next thing that you could try to do to get a bank account as a medical marijuana company in Illinois after Bank of Springfield shuts you down. You could become a tea house. You're no longer a medical marijuana cultivation center or a dispensary. Now, it's way more difficult for the cultivation center than a dispensary to do this. The dispensary would be a tea house. This cup of tea is delightful. It's ginger root infused. You can really smell the ginger. It's $60 and it comes with an eighth of Granddaddy Purple marijuana. Yay! So that was how some companies are trying to get their own bank accounts and get around the, it's not necessarily a prohibition because FinCEN guidance is still valid, and they Department of Treasury does want marijuana businesses to use the banking services because it makes it just so much easier on so many different levels, from paying your taxes to paying your employees to paying your vendors to not having, a whole bunch of marijuana disappear out the back, which is worth tens if not hundreds of, lots of money. You can't come in unless you have a medical marijuana card, and then if you have that, then you can buy tea. And now it's what you've been really waiting for. Thank you so much for sticking with us. And before I tell you how to really launder the money, if this is your first time here, I hope that you will subscribe to the Cannabis Industry Lawyer, where we will teach you more about the federal marijuana laws so that you can change them. And if you've been here before and you have a question, leave it in the comments. We'd be thrilled to answer your question about the legal cannabis industry. And here is how you actually launder the money. It's salacious because it requires interstate transfers. You probably are going to need a bank account in a different state than Illinois. And you're going to need what they call a PEO, which is a professional employer organization. They've been around since the 1960s. They're quite an interesting service layer on the business. Now, your business is operating and it's got all those moving parts, and you're really focused on your particular area of the business. For the most widely known, at least for the retail level, would be the medical marijuana dispensary. So think about all the stuff that you have to do to operate a medical marijuana dispensary. You have to make sure that you have the product. You have to make sure that you have bud tenders. You have to make sure that you have the right security. You have to have the rent. You have to have the utilities, and you have to maybe have some merch as well. All of those things are going on in your business. However, the PEO is going to deal with more of your administrative and your HR, your human resources components. So when you pay your bud tender, you have to make sure that you withhold the federal income tax, which is hilarious because you're basically telling the federal government, here's where we have trafficked in a Schedule 1 substance, thank you for, allowing us to generate income. This is your tax dollar. Thanks so much, and I'll see you real soon.